£1 billion discretionary will be the same as the £1.1 billion, and that will help local authorities. They should have the cash by the end of this week at the latest, and then I agree with him, I urge them to get it out as quickly as possible.
Leila Moran.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as in many places, local pubs and bars in Oxford, West and Abingdon are on their knees. One of my constituents, a bar owner, told me that her business is slowly going under and that she stands to lose everything. The £9,000 is, of course, welcome, but the concern is will delay rather than stop them from going under. So will the Chancellor step in and save our locals by scrapping the rateable value cap for pubs, allowing them to access the Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Grant Fund, offer rent holidays during times of enforced closure, and guarantee now to extend the furlough scheme for as long as it is needed?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the Honourable Lady makes a good point about the importance of our local pubs. There is no rateable value cap on the grants. That was the case in the earlier iteration in the spring, but the latest grants are actually done by rateable value, and they are eligible for businesses with a rateable value in excess of £51,000. And of course, they also benefit from business rates holidays, so I hope that helps. But I share with her sympathy for the industry. I know it's difficult, and we must do what we can to help them.
Gary Sambrook.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Chancellor will know that the furlough scheme and the self-employed scheme has helped protect many millions of jobs across the UK and many livelihoods across the Birmingham Northfield constituency. But as he said, unfortunately, not every job is going to be able to be protected during this pandemic. And so can he outline the measures he's taking across government to help support those who find themselves unemployed?
I can give my honourable friend my assurance that the government's #1 economic priority remains jobs and trying to help people into employment. To that end, we've created various schemes and put billions of pounds towards them, whether it's doubling the number of work coaches, the Restart scheme for the long-term unemployed, or indeed our Kickstart scheme to help 250,000 young people at risk of unemployed find new work with government-funded jobs. And I look forward to working with him and delivering all of those vital initiatives.
Kirsty Blackman.
Thank you. A number of people are still in childcare vouchers schemes rather than having moved to tax-free childcare. There's a number of those who at the start of the pandemic did not realise how long the impact would last, and now they've racked up large balances that they will not be able to spend before their child no longer needs wraparound childcare. Would the Chancellor please look at those people who have got this large balance and consider putting in place some flexibility, or asking employers to put in place some flexibility, because they've ended up in this situation through no fault of their own?
I'm not familiar with the specific details that the Honourable Lady is raising, but I can see the logic of what she's saying if I follow it correctly, but I'll happily have a look at it and write back to her.
James Daly.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the Chancellor's announcement of an extra £500 million worth of funding for discretionary funding for local authorities in England? Can my right honourable friend confirm that councils have absolute discretion in the use of these monies, including, if they so choose, the provision of grants to self-employed workers or sole traders whose businesses are based at their home address?
I can give my honourable friend the assurance that these grants are meant to be discretionary. It's for local authorities to make the decisions at their discretion as to how best to support their local economies. The guidance for this should remain the same as it was before, and I do believe that gives local authorities the discretion they need.
Afzal Khan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A supply teacher in my constituency contacted me last week after being told she would not be furloughed despite being unable to work while schools are closed. Last summer, less than half of the supply teachers were furloughed, and in some cases were furloughed at just 80% of the national minimum wage. What steps will the Chancellor now take to ensure all supply staff are able to access the furlough scheme during this lockdown and prevent them from falling through the gaps?
Madam Deputy Speaker, as I follow the question correctly, I think the guidance has already been clarified and was already in place that childcare was a reason that people could be furloughed. But with regard to supply teachers, in any case, I will have a look at what the guidance says.
Mark Mingus.
I'd like to welcome the continuation of the unprecedented support provided by the Chancellor throughout this crisis. We're looking forward to our economic bounce back. Can I call my right honourable friend to extend the business rate holiday and VAT reduction, which have been absolutely critical to the tourism and hospitality sector and filed.
I know how important the tourism and hospitality sector is to my honourable friend's constituency and what a fantastic champion he is for it. I know how important those initiatives have been. Of course, future decisions of that magnitude will be for the budget, but I will take what he says into consideration.
Stephen Kinnock.
Deputy Speaker, community union self-employed members have raised serious concerns of discrimination in the self-employment income support scheme for those who have taken maternity or parental leave. They point out that eligibility conditions and calculation methods chosen by the Chancellor discriminate against women because they do not exempt periods of maternity leave. What steps has the Chancellor taken to ensure that all parents, and women in particular, are not penalised in their income support payments for having children?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the guidance and eligibility for the particular circumstances that the honourable gentleman mentioned have been published and are designed to be fair to everyone and take into account, as best as we can, everyone's varying different circumstances.
Dr. Jamie Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituency, Bridgend, contains an award-winning nature reserve at Kenfig, some of the best surfing beaches in the world. The town of Porthcawl is a popular tourist town, and Bridgend itself is an historic market town. So it's of no surprise that the impact of COVID-19 on the hospitality sector has really hit my constituents hard. And many of them have written to me recently to ask me to support UK Hospitality's recommendations as to how the government can help, in particular on the extension of support on VAT and business rates. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that every step possible should be taken to support this vital sector?
Well, my honourable friend is right about the importance of this vital sector to our local communities and indeed our economy. Hundreds of thousands of businesses, millions of people employed, and like him, I'm keen to see it spring back to its former glory, and I look forward to hearing from him about how best he thinks we can support that industry into the future.
Zara Sultana.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Contrary to the government's briefings, the problem with lockdown isn't support bubbles or exercising with a friend. The key problem is that people are still being forced into work, with too many non-essential workplaces open and statutory sick pay so low, many can't afford to self-isolate when they need to. So will the Chancellor provide the economic support necessary for people to stay at home by ensuring that all non-key workers who can't work from home are furloughed on full pay and raising sick pay to the real living wage at £330 a week?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I mean, with regard to the appropriate health restrictions, with greatest respect to the Honourable Lady, I think it's best that we listen to the scientists, and she would have heard the Chief Medical Officer this morning giving his view on what the right approach to other restrictions is. And with regard to support, I think the furlough scheme remains one of the most generous and comprehensive anywhere in the world, and it's something I'm proud of and I know is providing security to many millions of people at what is a very difficult time.
Esther McVeigh.
The Chancellor will know that it was the blue-collar Conservative group who were instrumental in persuading the supermarkets to return the business rate relief they did not need. And we asked them to do that on the basis that there were many who've gone without support, and they agreed to do it on that basis. So will the Chancellor ensure that that £2 billion returned by the supermarkets will go to those who've been excluded so far from support because they cannot go another 3 months without any income?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I pay tribute to my right honourable friend's tireless campaigning on this issue, and she's a great advocate for the cause. She will know, of course, that we have just provided over £4.5 billion of support to many small businesses up and down the country, which I know she will warmly welcome and has also called for. And indeed, part of that is £500 million of discretionary funding for local authorities